everyone, and welcome to Une soirée avec Philippe Karl. It's a pleasure to have you all. We have people from all over the world in this wehorse online event. It's a pleasure to have you all. Shout out to Hungary, people from Germany, Kentucky, USA, Switzerland, Spain, Canada, Austria, South Africa, Poland, and many, many more. It's a pleasure to have you all, and we are excited to have Monsieur Philippe Karl alongside with us tonight. So, bonjour at this place already, Philippe.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Before we start with you, there are a couple of technicalities I would like to point out to you guys. So, if you want to post something about this live event, about Une soirée avec Philippe Karl, an evening with Philippe Karl, a deep dive into his philosophy with the Ecole de Légèreté, you can do so on social media, and our Instagram handle is at wehorse_en, and for all German speakers, it is at wehorse_de. So feel free to post something about this event, about Une soirée avec Philippe Karl on social media. Now, if you do have any technical problems, our team is here to help, of course, in the chat and on social media, so you can drop us a text anywhere. But there is also something I would like to point out. It is the compatibility mode. Here's a little illustration that shows how you can actually activate it. It's actually super easy. So the only thing you need to do is you go down to the bottom. There is Get Video and Audio Help, and then you click on the big green button, and that is the compatibility mode. Philippe will take a deep dive into his philosophy, into his way of schooling, of teaching, and actually bringing also this forward to the horses. And you, after his presentation, can ask questions. There will be an open Q&A session, and you can actually drop your question under Ask a Question. The section on the bottom, there you can actually enter your question. You can also upvote questions of fellow participants of this event, and then we will actually take those that got the most upvotes in the Q&A session, which will be in or after Philippe's presentation. So that is all from my side. Let's Oh, we have a problem, I hear, with Philippe. He somehow went out of the connection. That's not a problem. We have our technical team here. They will bring him back in. So it will be a deep dive session into Philippe Karl's philosophy. Ecole de Légèreté. He has been in with the Cadre Noir, which is basically one of the French national icons of horse riding. He has been an écuyer of the Cadre Noir in Saumur, France for over 13 years. It has been the foundation of his philosophy, the foundation of his work. There is Bea. Bea is Philippe's wife. And she is also basically our technical consultant on the ground in France. Philippe is in the southwestern part of France. So now they're going to switch. And now we are going to be back on with Philippe. Not going to be a problem. Super easy. No worries at all. So once again, questions under Ask a Question. There you can drop your questions. For everyone that is from the German-speaking audience, you can also post German questions. We know that there are many Germans tonight also in this event. So if you do have German questions, feel free to drop them there. Philippe, welcome back.
Yeah. Happy to see you again.
Yeah, good that you are back. And we can now start immediately. So it is an evening with you and a deep dive into your philosophy. You are the founder of the Ecole de Légèreté, and you founded it in 2004. I already said that you have been for many, many years with the Cadre Noir, which is one of the French national icons, I can say. And you founded the School of Légèreté, which is now established in many, many countries around the globe, coming from Europe, but also with a global reach nowadays. And we are very happy to have you. And now the floor is yours. And yeah, Philippe, now it's your turn.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just something, the frame on the screen is incomplete. I just see a part of the pictures.
Okay. I think there is, at this point, nothing we can do about it, but everything should be on there. It is only the bottom and the top part, Philippe, so
yeah,
everything should be on there for you.
Yeah, but not yet.
So if you wish, you can proceed with your first slide. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, okay. Good. As you know, any rider is looking for a better way. And we could say that a better way is when being more effective with softer means. But for that, we have to respect the nature of the horse. And nowadays, we have the scientific knowledge and many data in order to check what is right, what is not right, what concepts are the good one, are natural or unnatural. So we could say that the horse is the master. He will tell us what is right and what is not. To illustrate this way of thinking, I would like tonight to comment a well-known global dogma of the official dressage, which says, I need the next, ride your horse from behind, over the back, and through the pole. Good. Next slide. Very good. Yes, so let's go. From behind, it means this drawing you can see in any dressage book. It says that the horse is improving his balance and collecting, for instance, here the trot, by engaging more the hind legs to the center of gravity. It means shortening his bearing basis from behind. And it means, you can see that on the drawing, that the limbs of the diagonal base converge. If you compare them to the natural diagonal basis I was drawing in green. So let's go. Unfortunately, this concept is invisible on photos and films. You can find 1,000 of them. If you check photos of horses in all forms of trot, from the most extended one up to the most collected one, you can see that diagonal pair of limb instants are never converging. They keep strictly parallel. Extended trot, medium trot, collected trot, and passage. So the horse is shortening his strides and bouncing more, but is never shortening his bearing basis. Good. To the next. I still have the problem of seeing a part of my pictures only. I don't see up and down. I just have the middle. If you can find a technical solution, I would like it. It's easy to explain. A horse can shorten his bearing basis from behind when he's standing still or when he's moving on the spot. for instance, here, with a horse in collected halt. But as long as the horse goes forward, he has to push, and a horse is developing his power thrust when the hind legs comes behind the vertical position. So there is an incompatibility between being forward in forward movement and shortening the bearing basis. Both things don't fit together. Thank you. Let's go to the next one. Here you can see horses in passage. This is the most collected trot. And in this most collected trot, the horses are never shortening the frame from behind. Good. Let's go. Other pictures of passage from different masters of different schools, and you can notice that the hind leg is never converging to the front leg, and on the contrary, in many passages, the horses open the bearing base from behind. You can see the hock behind the quarters. Good, next. And for instance, here, there is a very exceptionally brilliant passage from Nuno Oliveira, and you can see that the horse is absolutely not shortening from behind. His hind leg of the diagonal base is clearly behind, and also the horse is not vertical nose. So it shows that a horse doesn't need to be completely flexing his pole to collect and to collect nicely. We will talk about that later on again. Good, next one. So if we sum up a bit about collection, as long as a horse is collecting in forward movement, it's without shortening the bearing basis. He does it by raising the neck and lifting his shoulders. The only collection in which the horse is shortening from behind is when he is collecting on the spot, for instance, in piaffe, or in the very extremely collected canter you need for a pirouette. So when the horse is extremely collect and move on the spot or nearly on the spot, they can and they have to shorten from behind. As long as they are in forward movement, they are strictly never. Next one. So then we come to the idea that the collection should be achieved by combining the proper balance and a top impulsion, not by compressing the horse between pushing aids and braking aids. And so this famous rule of hands without legs, legs without hands makes sense. There is no need to compress the horse to collect him. So hands without legs, legs without hands. Next one. Let's now comment over the back. What does it mean? One of the rules of this official doctrine is that it's only the engagement of the hind legs under the body which is supposed to provoke a higher tension of the back muscles, and this is supposed to provoke the raising of the neck. We know that this shortening from behind doesn't exist, and so we cannot assert that the engagement of the hind legs are provoking the raising of the neck. It could be that we have to admit that the raising of the neck is caused by the raising of the neck and nothing else. Good. Next one. This training over the back means also overall bend when the horse is on curved lines or in sideway movements. This is the official thesis. The horse is supposed to be properly ridden on a curved line if the whole spine from the poll to the tail is adapting to the curve. Yes, but if we seriously study locomotion and kinetics, we know that the spine undulates in walk and trot, mainly in the horizontal plane, in canter, mainly in the vertical plane, but the spine constantly undulates. This has been studied very seriously by many people, and for instance here by Commandant Licard. Good, next picture. And we could compare in walk and trot, the spine mainly undulates in the horizontal plane like a fish moves. And in canter, the spine mainly undulates in the vertical plane as mammals see are swimming. So Master Horse would say the undulation of the spine is the core of the locomotion. Freezing the dorsal-lumbar area in bending one side is incompatible with any forward movement. A horse doesn't move like that. Let's go. And there are many examples of that. For instance, there is an interesting book written by Harry Bolt, who was a gold medal in dressage. And he had the good idea to make overhead photos of all the exercises from the green horse to the Grand Prix Special. And it's interesting because you see hundreds of photos like that. Here you see a horse in travers and renvers. You see the bend of the neck, very clear, but the bend of the back, nothing. So it doesn't correspond at all to this idea of the overall bend. And even more, let's go to the next slide. The official shoulder in is supposed to be done like that, with an overall bend. And so thanks to this overall bend, there should be no crossing of the hind legs. This is regularly repeated. The quarters should keep parallel to the wall, and so the horse should not cross the hind legs. Good. In fact, Harry Bolt's book again, you can see in shoulder in that again, there is no visible bend of the back. And you can also see that the quarters make an angle with the wall. They are not parallel to the wall. And so there is a crossing. So this rule doesn't work. Again, let's go. The reality, in fact, the reality is that the neck of the horse can keep bent one side due to the rider. But the rest of the spine needs to go on undulating from side to side on each side of the straight line at every step. So the back of the horse keeps moving in as long as the horse is in forward movement. It's like that. So the reality is in contradicting the rule. Let's go. Let's conclude that in terms of use of the aids, it's important to understand, because when the rider is extremely demanding on the dorsal lumbar lateral flexion is convinced of, or the engagement of the hind legs is also convinced of, and he's doing that in forward movement, he is seriously using and constantly using his legs without letting the horse go more forward. So in fact, he's compressing the horse between contradictory aids, and the worst is that this is for something the horse anyway cannot do. So if you want to desensibilize the horse to your hands and to your legs, you cannot do better. So Master Horse says no, and he's suggesting keep your legs dedicated to looking for activity. It's fundamental and so important. And don't bother him for things he cannot do. Come to the next slide. We come now to the famous through the pole. The first idea is it reasonable to resume the whole forehand, the control of the whole forehand to the simple flexion of the pole? Maybe not. So let's see that more in details. For instance, let's see how a horse is turning. We know that he's not doing it according to the official dressage rules, bending his back on the curved line. But if you watch horses in liberty, you can notice that they are nearly always turning with the head out. And why is that? Because it's with this position, the easiest way shift their weight to the inside shoulder. Tu vois, je ne vois rien du tout là.
Oui, mais ça, je peux pas.
Good. So let's see how the horse is doing. And so we could say, when the horse has to turn, to change the direction, he is not doing it adapting to the curve like a train is following the rails. It's not that. It's not a mechanical matter. It's a matter of balance. When the horse has to go to the right, he needs to shift the weight to the right shoulder. If he's not doing, the rider can do whatever he wants, even very complicated, the horse will not turn. So the changes of direction are a matter of change of balance laterally. It's quite simple. Let's go. Good. And something else. It means that teaching the horse to turn, bending to the inside, is okay. But it's perfectly natural, and I would say even more, and very useful to teach the horse to turn counterbend. So for instance, here you can see a horse bend to the left. He will turn left if you sit to the left, and use, if needed, a lateral effect of your left rein. We name that an opening rein. It's a lateral effect because we need a lateral change of balance. But it's also possible to turn to the right using a left neck rein. So it's a sideways action. The rein comes to the neck and is like pushing the neck and the shoulders to the right with the seat to the right. So we come to the simple idea that it's both things are possible and are necessary. And the seat should not be always on the side of the bend. This is another rule which has no sense. The seat has to be on the side the horse needs to shift his weight. So if he's turning right with a left bend, you use the left neck rein and you sit to the right. And that's it. It's logical, simple, effective. And all natural riding are using it. For instance, the cowboys in the working equitation, I mean, they have something else to do than to bend the body of the horse with the legs. Good, let's go. Last but not least, about this turning problem, you know that horses are all asymmetrical as we are. For instance, here, drawing number 1, you can see a horse with a natural bend to the right. So the horse will always have the tendency to return more or less to this attitude. And when the horse keeps a little bend to the right, it tends to keep more weight on the left shoulder. And as a consequence, the quarters are a bit crooked to the right. So the horse is not straight. Good. If, not, drawing number 2, if you teach this horse to turn right with a little bend to the left and using a left neck rein, you will have to teach him because he does it on his own. But when you're on his back and you ask for it, it's something else. So the horse needs to learn it. When he knows that, you have a fantastic possibility, fantastic because effective and simple and natural. You have a fantastic possibility to straighten the horse. If you bend him a little bit to the left and use a left neck rein, you have a possibility to take the shoulders back right in front of the quarters. And you make your horse straight each time it's necessary this way. With one rein acting sideways some centimeters, it's done. So it's very precious, and horses should absolutely know what is a neck rein. And it's much more important than to spend hours and years with strong legs to try to bend the back, because this, anyway, the horses cannot do. Good, let's go on. Let's see now. So we saw that when the horse has to turn, what is deciding the turn? It's the shoulders. Let's see now how the horses are jumping. You can see on the previous photo that the horse is, the hind legs are not yet touching the ground, that the front legs are already in the air, and the shoulders were already leaving the ground. So it means the horse decides the jump with his shoulders. It's lifting his shoulders. He comes to the proper angle for the trajectory he needs to use for the jump which is in front of him. So again, the shoulders make the decision in jumping. If the horse has not this high capacity to hit the ground, flex and lift his knees and lift his shoulders very quick and possibly very high, even if he has a lot of power and big quarters, he will never be a good jumper. So we could say that for a good jumping horse, you need courage, this is clear, but also this capacity to quickly lift the shoulders. So we could, let's say it's simple, horses jump first of all with their shoulders. Next slide. We also see another horse jumping there. And I would like, by the way, to remark this. There is no situation in which a horse is so completely stretching his whole upper line and so quickly than when he's rounding, because jumping with a good style above a fence. And we can see that the horses are stretching their upper line like that. The neck is long, round, and the nose is clearly forward. So the day I will see horses and horses well jumping, putting the nose toward the chest and overflexing in order to stretch their back better and jump better, I'll admit hyperflexion and things like that. As long as it's not the case, no question. So correct neck extension has to look like that. It's absolutely clear. Master Horses says it has to be like that. Next slide. How does the horse collect in forward movement. We saw a little before that the collection in forward movement doesn't originate in the shortening of the bearing basis from behind. So the change of balance and the upward movement have to result from something else. And this something else, it's the shoulders. The horse can collect his trot and become more bouncy up to passage, for instance, if he is raising his neck, lifting his withers, his rib cage, and then have the possibility to lift his shoulders very high. And then he's using his back up and down like a trampoline, and he comes to passage. So, saying it simple, what is deciding the collection in forward movement? Again, it's the shoulders. So naturally, the horse needs a high impulsion, a lot of activity, fully using his back. We all agree on that. But if the horse has not the capacity to lift very high his shoulders one after the other, because raising his neck and changing his balance from the front, he will not come to collection. So again, I sum up. Shoulders decide the changes of direction. Shoulders decide the jump. Shoulders are in charge of collection in forward movement. It's important to talk about the shoulders and not only about the tail all the time. Next. Next slide. Good. Here is an example. This horse, Michelangelo, was a Trackener stallion in a quite known stud. And I was offered to train him when he was 15. I was training him. And I was offered to train him because the professional dressage riders were training him, didn't like him. He was trained extremely overflexed, naturally. He was extremely contracted. And he was not a especially talented horse for dressage. So they were complaining about him. He has a bad mouth. He has a bad character. He has a bad back. He's not using it properly. And he will never collect. Good. But this horse was showing in public piaffe, passage, and everything, and school walk, and other things like that, and flying changes. 1 year later in Neumünster during a show. So there are proof of that. And how was it possible? It was not a miracle. It was just respecting what the lesson the horses are giving us. First of all, I opened the nose bend, naturally. I stopped overflexing him. I was taking his neck high, opening his pole in order that he can change his balance, lift his withers. Aside that, he was also extending the neck properly. And with that, I was teaching him jambette and Spanish walk. With that, he was learning to lift his shoulders. And then with frequent transition between Spanish walk and trot, Spanish walk and trot, there is progressively a combination of both, and the horse started passage. And you can see it already on the photo on the right side. His passage is already quite nice. The pole is not yet flexed, and the nose is not yet vertical, because otherwise, at the beginning, the vertical nose is limiting the lifting of the neck, and then the horse has difficulties, but it came afterward. So, again, this is the proof, and you can do that with very, very ordinary and limited horses. They can come to very nice passage if you know what the horse needs to come to it. Good. Next. So, Master Horse says, the activity of the back and the hindquarters is necessary, but not sufficient, because everything originates in the forehand. It's hard to hear that for many people, but it's a fact. And if we watch the horses, if we accept to learn from them, if we study all the elements of locomotion, kinetics, and so on, it's clear. Collection in forward movement is achieved by raising the neck, because it's lifting the rib cage and lightening the forehand. So the horse has to learn the hand, including the aids used to raise the neck. It's fundamentally important, natural, and classical. Aside that, we have to notice that a complete extension of the upper line has to be done by neck extension with nose forward. We saw it in jumping. The withers come down, and the forehand bears more weight when the horse is extending the neck. And even with the correct neck extension, we should limit the duration in order not to overcharge the forelegs. So hours and months with the head down, it's not a good idea. And naturally, roll-cure, hyperflexion, or simply overflexing are unnatural and harmful, and thus they are not classical. We never see the horses in liberty overflexing in order to do something better. Absolutely never, on the contrary. So thank you, Master Horse. Next slide. And there are scientific confirmations of what I was first explaining. For instance, the Kassel University was experimenting something very interesting about the influence of the change of positions of the neck. So let's go. So with several teachers, and among them Tamina Pinant, who is also an instructor of our school. So when a rider is sitting on the back of a horse, he brings more weight on the forehand, it's clear. And the withers tend to drop down. This is normal. Next. We have to remind that there is no bony connection between the shoulder blade and the rest of the body. So the rib cage and the body are suspended between the shoulder blade by ligaments and muscles. And there is a group of muscle especially important is the serratus that are running from the top of the inside of the shoulder blade to the base of the neck and to the ribs. And naturally, when these muscles contract and shorten, they are lifting the base of the neck and also lifting the rib cage. Good. Let's go. There was a first quick experience, and then it was teasing the curiosity, and then finally this group of students and teachers, they decided to create a very serious scientific protocol, and this is what we are going to see now. Next one. So they did this experiment with 50 horses of any type and size, trained, not trained, doesn't matter. And next slide. They have been measured with an extremely precise laser system. And the horses were measured in 3 positions, the head as high as possible, the head at the pole at the same or on the same horizontal than the withers, or low as possible. And this by using a bucket with some food. It's very effective and simple. Good. And each measurement was done 3 times in order to make absolutely sure. Good. Next one. And so each horse has been measured in these 3 positions, bareback, and again in these 3 positions with a rider 65 kilos, including the saddle, and another time with a rider 85 kilos, including the saddle. And each measurement 3 times. It means there were 27 measurements for each horse, and with calculations at the end. So you can see here how it was done. Good, let's go. And the results have been very interesting. Look, this is, we will see 4 quite typical examples. This horse, for instance, in blue, you see the curve bareback. So when the horse comes to the medium position, he's lifting a little bit the rib cage, and again a little bit with a high position. But the change is quite limited. When the horse is ridden, the withers drop a lot with a low position. But when the horse is raising his neck, he returns very quickly to the position he had in high position without the rider. So imagine you don't use this lifting of the neck. It's a disaster. So the horse returns to his first position, even with the rider. The second one, the curves are a little bit different, but it's at the end it's the same. The horse is nearly at the same height in a high position with the rider than without the rider. Next slide. This is another type of horse. This one is not completely compensating the rider with the raising of the neck. The raising of the neck is improving the situation, but let's say the horse returns to the position he had in the medium position without the rider. The fourth one, again with another profile, the horse returns to the height of the withers he had without the rider. Good, next. And at the end, collecting all the data, you can see here horizontally the height on the withers in low position, vertically the height of the withers in high position. There is the average, and you can see that all horses, the cloud of the points, all horses were improving their balance by lifting their withers while lifting the head, even with a rider. So this is absolutely clear result. It's 100%. They all do more or less, but they all do. Good. So conclusions, we have to sum up that. Next. This scientific study shows that the raising of the neck is a compensation because it's shifting the weight backward to the quarters and it's raising the rib cage. So when the official dressage doctrine says, on no account should the rider lift the neck of the horse with his hands, it is wrong, because we saw that it's not the engagement of the hind legs we can provoke it, because there is none. So, in fact, yes, the horse is improving his balance by lifting his neck. Good. And I would also say that when it said the rider should not lift the neck of the horse with his hands, it's not the reality. The rider is not lifting the neck of the horse with his hand. He's teaching the horse a signal of the hands, which says, please lift your neck. And the horse will lift his neck with his muscles. So let's go on. Another scientific confirmation. This has been done by Andrew McLean, and there is an Australian scientific riding group. And we know in terms of neurosciences that the movement are determined by central pattern generators. This is neural oscillators. There is one in the base of the neck, one in the lumbosacral area, and they are in charge of maintaining the purity of the gaits and determining the movements. Let's go. And the conclusions of these studies are the forelegs of the horse predominate over the hind legs. These central pattern generators maintain the purity of the gaits, and they cause the hind legs to follow similar pattern of movement as the forelegs. So the forelegs decide. The forelegs act and the hind legs react. And at the end of this study, they mentioned that the biomechanical dominance of the foreleg is not well understood among horse trainers. This is very diplomatic terms. I would say that it's completely denied because the doctrine is right the opposite of that. And they tend to place more emphasis on the hind legs. Yes, the engagement of the hind legs and over the back and all that things. That's the reason why we talk about tonight. In fact, achieving control of the foreleg is instrumental to gaining control of on the hind legs. But this is exactly what we're explaining from the beginning. So, next slide. We have to care now about the neck and the head. We were talking about the shoulders. What about the head and the neck? To make it simple with this drawing, we understand that the reins are an extremely important way of communication between the horse and the rider. Because we could say that the hand is the transceiver of the rider, and the mouth is the transceiver of the horse. If we want, the mouth of the horse is very near the brain, probably it's good for communication, and the mouth is also at the end of a long balancing pole. And if we want a good communication with the horse and control the balance, we have to understand the mouth and to respect it. It's absolutely necessary. Let's go on. And another reason is that the mouth of the horse is made with extremely sensitive tissues, and especially the tongue, that is extremely innerved and vascularized, and so oversensitive. And the bit lies on the tongue and on the bars of the lower jaw. Aside that, the tongue is connected to the hyoid bone. This hyoid bone is connected to a muscle running to the occipital, to the head, and another muscle which is running from the hyoid to the sternum. And there are other connections too. So next slide. Master Horse says, my mouth is the crossroad of numerous biomechanical synergies. And so it's concerned by anything that occurs in the whole forehand of the horse. at least. And it also means that strong or prolonged pressures on the tongue or the bars are painful and traumatic physically and psychologically. So they have to be banned. Absolutely. Next. Let's see a bit how the horse is dealing with the tension of the reins. How does the horse tighten the reins? Imagine you sit on a horse standing still. You close your eyes. You take the reins, tighten the reins, and don't move. If you feel that the tension of the reins is a bit increasing, what happened? How the horse was doing that? But I can tell you that when I'm putting this question to people and they don't have my drawing in front of their nose, they say a lot of things except the good one, because the good one is so simple that we don't think about. If the tension of the rein is increasing, it's because the horse is putting his nose a bit more forward. In other terms, he's opening his paw. So we could say a horse tightens the rein with his paw. Interesting. Good. We remember that. And next slide. Now, let's imagine that the horse is taught to yield first by flexing the paw, which is the most common thing you can see around. What happens? If the horse is flexing the paw, is in fact coming a little bit behind the bit because he doesn't tighten the reins anymore. So if the rider is consciously keeping low hands and he wants the contact again, he will have to shorten the reins. And in shortening the reins and tightening them, it could be that the horse is flexing again. And this is the way you finally have a very overflexed horse. So it's not a good idea. And we know also that when a horse comes behind a bit, he could come behind the legs and become restive. And there is a very interesting experience you can read in General Lott's book, and I was experimenting myself. When a horse is totally restive, it means for any reason, bad treatment and so on, a horse is completely refusing to go forward. And the more you use your legs or even the whip or the spurs, the more he stops or even starts stepping back or rearing or things like that. This is serious. There is one way to get out of this terrible situation in some minutes. Starting, it's using what we name in French rein rigid reins. It means you are putting two sticks, you tie them to the snaffle ring, and you will use them to push the nose forward. And what happens? The horses don't know what to do against that. Sorry. You make them opening the paw, extending the neck, losing the balance to the shoulders, and moving. Naturally, you will have to combine this use of the rigid reins with, again, using softly the legs and reconditioning the horse to the legs. But it's very interesting to realize that when a horse is totally refusing to go forward, the only means to obtain forward movement again, it's to open the paw. So I would think about seriously before recommending overflexion, roll cure, and tralala. Because it's definitely not a good idea for many reasons. Unnatural, dangerous for the forward movement, and with many pathologies and so on. Good. Next. Master Horse says, we sum up a bit. Putting the horse in hand should on no account start by flexing the pole. We understand why now. The rider should never let the horse decide to flex the pole on his own. And so helping reins of any kind are forbidden. And the worst ones are the side reins and the running reins, because they are forcing the horse to flex the pole and to come down. And for many reasons, and we will see it again, it's mistreating the mouse, it's forcing the flexion, so things we don't want. The horse explains that it should not be like that. Next. We saw how a horse tighten the reins when he decides to do so. Let's see now how he's yielding when he decides to do so. So again, sit on your horse, standing still, get your reins, put your leader hands down, and don't move. If you feel the tension of the reins, that loosen a little bit. What happened? How was the horse doing that? And again, when I'm putting this question to people who don't have the drawing in front of their nose, I hear a lot of things. The first one I hear is, he was flexing the pole. And then I say, no, sorry, we said we don't want that, so it has to be something else. So what? There is only one possibility. Mobilizing the lower jaw. If the horse opens a little bit his mouth, he loosens the reins a little bit. And then it could be that you feel something lively reins, because the horse will move his lower jaw and move his tongue, play with the bit. So the horse looks tasting the bit. And we have to say now that the horse should learn yielding to the hand by giving his mouth. Let's go. So at the end, Master Horse says, the jaw yielding is the prerequisite for a respectful way to teach the horse the hand, instead of flexing the pole. Because we have to respect the mouth, which is oversensitive. We should not start by flexing. It's clear now. So what else than teaching the horse to give the mouth in one steady position? Good. In other words, teach your horse to say yes, talking, instead of forcing him to do yes by nodding. It means that obviously the tight or clenched noseband or special noseband should therefore be banned. Because the special noseband, clenched and double, whatever you want, it's a way, there are means to shut up the horse. The horse is forbidden to protest with his mouth, and it enables the rider to use strong hands and to force the flexion of the pole by more or less mistreating the mouth. So the opposite of what is correct regarding the horse. Good, let's go. So we understood that the mouth is the first key in schooling the horse the hand. How to do that? It's when the horse is in a high position, raised neck and open pole, that he can learn giving his mouth the easiest way. Why? Because he's obviously self-carriage. He has no mean and no reason to lean on the bit. Because thanks to an open pole, the TMGs are free. The horse can mobilize the lower jaw very easily because the throat is not under pressure. What happens when the horse is flexed and overflexed even more? In this position, the sternoioid is vertical and long and stretched. So it's a position in which the horse can use it to mobilize the tongue very easily. So it's in this position the horse should learn giving his mouth. First in standing still, obviously, and afterward in forward movement. Let's go. Master horse sum up the situation like that. If the rider wants to become the natural leader of the horse, and if he wants to influence its balance and locomotion through the position of the neck, first of all, he has to mobilize the horse's jaw and tongue. It's a guarantee of balance, relaxation, attention to the rider, and gentle submission. In one word, confidence. The other thing is that it induces a very fine communication with the horse, a dialogue between the hand and the mouth. And with the jaw yielding, the rider comes kindly in the intimacy of the horse. When you can play with a lively mouth who answers your questions, it's fantastic. It's something else. Let's go. But it's something to experiment, otherwise you have no idea about. So we have enough clear ideas to talk about the use of the hands now, because at the end we have to decide how to use them. We know already what not to do, more or less, but let's see what to do. So I would be official. I would say low hands, because this is something we hear all the time. Keep your hands down, don't move your hands, keep them down. Low hands. What happens when you are teaching a young horse, for instance? When the rider is fixing his hands down, the bit is acting, the horse is in a natural attitude. He's not supposed to be already in a forced position by the use of any constraining system. Good. So the bit is strongly acting on the tongue. It's painful. The horse is reacting, trying to evade from that, putting his nose up. And then it's more painful because the rider is resisting with his hands and maybe pulling. And a perfect vicious circle is starting. The more you're resisting, the more the horse is fighting. The more it's fighting, you start pulling, and it's endless. Good. And then the horse will be supposed to be difficult, and he will sometimes take the tongue back in the mouth to avoid the pain, or he will take the tongue over the bit, or he will take his tongue out of the mouth. This is defenses in order to protect his tongue. The horses are desperate when they are in such a situation. So when the rider is doing that, it's not a surprise that he ends up with a tight noseband, a special noseband, and special reins to force the head down. Because when you see how the side reins or the triangle or sliding reins are acting, it consists in lowering even more and more the force which is acting on the mouth, and more acting on the tongue. So if you're lucky at the end to avoid the pain, the horse is putting his head down and start flexing and over-flexing. If you're not lucky, he will fight rear and he will become dangerous. So this is acting against in order to force the horse down. The philosophy of that is simple. It's to force the horse down and start fighting. There is an alternative, fortunately. Next slide. Yes. Again, a young horse. or a beginner in a natural attitude, because they are not supposed to start their education in another one. Imagine, first, you're not obsessed by putting your hands down. You delicately, kindly take the reins in order to align more or less your elbow, your hand, and your mouth with half-tight reins, in order that there is no action on the tongue. The horse is just as is carrying the bit with the tongue. The bit is just on the tongue, and that's all. Good. If the rider has to ask for something, I don't know what yet, we will see that later on, he needs to tighten the reins. But if he's acting by slowly lifting the hand as high as necessary to obtain what he wants, what happens? The more he's lifting his hand vertically, the more the tension of the rein is increasing. But the more the tongue is acting on the corner of the lips and not on the tongue at all. This is the reason why it's provoking the opening of the mouth, and then the rider can drop his hand, return to the low position of the hand with a light rein and say, thank you, this is what I wanted. So this is, I would name that the schooling hand, a hand which is used to explain something. And the use of the hand is gradually, different ways, we will see that later maybe, is progressively acting upward until you get what you want. But acting backward, no question. Blocking the hands down, no question. And pulling, no question. Acting on the tongue, no question. It should not start like that. Let's go. So Master Horse says, low hands harshly constrain the horse. And that's the reason why constraining instruments needed. This is the proof that it doesn't work that good. Raising the hands gently dominates the horse. By the way, if some of you studied Latin, there is a Latin root to this word, dominate. And this Latin root means which is above. So to dominate the horse, you lift your hand and you use it above the mouth. Interesting. Low, steady hands are a valid objective. When the horse is well reacting or when you have nothing to do, you drop your hand and you don't move. But they have to be rejected as means. We saw it. Using the low hands to teach the horse, it's a disaster because they are coercive and aggressive. We saw it. Good. Next slide. So we could sum up the use of the hands. It's not tonight that we will come to details and how to do with such a horse, such a behavior in such a situation. It would be too long and probably not very useful. We just mentioned the main things which are very important. The use of the hands. The horse, the rider, adjusts the reins according to the position of the horse. So it's our natural position. The hands have to be a little high, aligning the 3 points, elbow, hand, mouth. Good. If the rider has to do something, ask for something, he has to do it by lifting the hand. He will lift one hand or two hands, more or less, especially depending on what the horse is doing. It will be a vibrating hand or it will be more continuous tension. It depends what you have to do. But the hand should act up. Back is forbidden, pulling is forbidden, and down is forbidden. Red, because you can see that immediately you start acting on the tongue and backward, and this is no way. regarding the changes of direction, we saw it. It's a matter of lateral balance. So you use your hands sideways, to the right, to the left, opening rein, neck rein, according to what you need. And it's not related to the bend, as we saw. Naturally, when the horse is a beginner, he needs clear informations, and the gesture of your hands will be quite visible. If to be understood and effective and kind, you need to lift your hand 30 centimeters or 40, do it. Because if the horse is understanding and you drop your hand immediately and give very light contact, next time you will probably lift it much less. And the idea is that the more the horse is progressing, the more he keeps steady in hand with more refined positions, and the less you are moving your hands. And at the end, the communication between the mouth and your hand is nearly secret, and you are less and less frequently correcting the things, and you are more discreet, simply. But this is just normal. That's the important rule to know regarding the use of the hands. Let's go. So we were caring about the mouth first. Now, let's come to the second element of the mise en main, the neck. Pronounced lateral flexions. When you know that bending the back doesn't make sense, then you care about bending what you can bend. I mean the neck. Because the neck is flexible and we have to use it. And with pronounced lateral flexions, the rider is stretching half of the muscles of the neck, so it's half an extension already. This way, you're also developing a symmetrical flexibility, because there is always a side the horse has difficulties to bend. So if you practice systematically pronounced flexions both sides, the horse will become flexible and symmetrical in his neck. And by chain reaction in the rest of his body, easier. And when the neck is in the pronounced bend, the horse has a natural tendency to horizontalize his neck, because stretching a lot one side, stretching the other side, the horse tries to extend his neck, because when the neck is longer, it's easier to bend it. So the pronounced flexions are an excellent gymnastic to provoke the neck extension. Let's go. Next slide. Yes. Something interesting to notice about the neck extension. If the horse is following a correct, respectful progression, it's thanks to the correct neck extension that the horse will, for the first time, bring his nose near the vertical and without flexing the pole. It's just extending the neck, lowering the head. It brings the nose near the vertical, though the rider was not flexing the pole. And we saw at the beginning that flexing the pole from the beginning is not good. So this is a good way to put the horse on the bit, not forcing the flexion of the pole. Let's go. And the correct neck extension is very important. We saw it in jumping. But look, you have to make a decision. What kind of trot do you prefer? The one long neck, the horse on the bit, stretching his back, with the rider in rising trot, to release the back a bit with a nice, the horse seek the bit, stretch his whole upper line and develops the amplitude of natural gaits, or a horse pushed toward the bit, too much flexing the pole and being showy, but a completely artificial way, unfortunately, and naturally sitting. Unfortunately, this is what you can see too frequently. Good, let's go. So we can express now clearly the different steps of the education of the horse to the hand of the rider. The first step is the jaw yielding. I mean, the capacity to have the horse in balance, relaxed, confident, and with a good communication with the mouth. So this jaw yielding will be the prerequisite and the validation of any use of the hands. Before asking for a change of position, we have to make sure the horse is accepting the hand, is okay with it, attentive and lively. And after the change of position, make sure this new position is accepted and the horse is still attentive and relaxed. So jaw yielding is first and last in any use of the hands. Next. The second step is developing the flexibility of the neck. We need to use the neck as the horse could need it to do this and that. Lateral flexions, naturally, with jaw yielding, still. Neck extension, with jaw yielding, still. Next. And third step, I repeat, third and last, the flexion of the pole. So we are far from the idea that everything should start with the flexion of the pole. The proper flexion of the pole is a natural consequence of raising the neck, which gives a good balance, flexibility of the neck, suppleness, and jaw yielding, relaxation. So the horse should learn to flex the pole in a high position and progressively as high as possible. The horse should not learn to flex the pole dropping the head. This is a disaster. It's overflexion, falling to the shoulders, and so on. And at the end, when the horse is very advanced in studying the mise en main is the French expression. We cannot translate. If it's well understood, it means teaching the hand, the whole education to the hand. So we come at very advanced education to the hand, and we say the horse is ramené. Ramené, it's this position. It's a combination. The horse is fully in hand, and he is at once raising the neck, flexing the pole, and giving his mouth. If one of these elements is missing, back and return to school. This is the normal definition of ramené. Good, let's go. So it was the principles. We know the principles, we know the progression, and we know that we should not act on the tongue, and it's better to act on the corner of the lips. And we know that low hands is not a solution, it's a problem. Good. So let's put this in practice now. It becomes absolutely logical and natural and normal to think that the horse should learn the hands from the ground. It's better to learn the hand from the ground than to be at the lunge with extremely short side reins. It's more clever and more interesting, and it's provoking less problems. So we start from the ground. I explained today the main flexions. There are many in special situations, but this is the basis. First, facing the horse. And especially this first flexion is especially important for horses who have the tendency to lean on the bit, to drop their head and push against the bit. So both thumbs in the snaffle ring and pushing to the direction of the ears. So both hands are acting on the corner of the lips. The horse opens the mouth because the nose band is completely loose. And when he's self-carriage, not pushing against the bit and opening his mouth, the rider loosen the contact and let the horse talk and praise and repeat. And it has to become extremely easy. When it's understood enough, then the rider is doing it from the side. Why? Because when you are from the side, you have one side only to ask for the high position. And the horse should do the same. Raise his neck, open his mouth, play with the bit. It's the first step. We said everything starts with jaw yielding. That's it. Next. Demi-arrêt, jaw yielding. The demi-arrêt is this upward action, asking for a higher position or to lighten the contact. Second step, the lateral flexion. From the side and from a high position, because everything restarts at the very beginning. The horse is high, self-carriage, is giving his mouth, and then the rider is asking for the bend. The easiest, especially with some horses, is to do it from outside, because a horse can resist to the rein which is taking the head to the side, but it doesn't know what to do to the hand which is pushing the head away. And you can see there, the inner rein is acting up because running over the neck, the middle of the neck, but in fact, the rider doesn't insist with his hand, but is pushing the head this way. Good. And in this situation, is the horse giving the mouth again? Good. Thank you very much. Release. Let him think about. When the horse is well doing it like that, then you do it from inside. Second photo. The horse is nicely bending. Good. When he's well doing that both sides, it's no problem after a pronounced bend to let the reins go and let the horse extend his neck. So either in the right bend or in the left bend, he's learning to extend the neck in the bend, right and left. In standing still, in walk, in hand, it's perfectly possible. Sometimes, why not in a slow trot on the circle? Good. Next step. You notice that we were respecting the rules. The horse first giving his mouth, then bending, still giving his mouth, then saying to the bend, extending the neck, still giving his mouth. And we are not forcing anything. About the neck extension, there is a special situation I want to mention here because it's frequent. They are due to their conformation or their temperament or their experience in the past. There are horses leaning, pulling. I would say they are the normal one. But there are others who absolutely refuse the tension of the reins and lift their head as high as they can. We say the horse comes above the bit, or say sometimes nose to the stars. It's not very funny, but if you start fixing your hands down and fighting with that, you start a big trouble and dangerous situation. So in fact, there is a special flexion we name action-reaction, which consists, instead of fighting, in going with the horse when he's lifting his head in order to convince him to go the other way. And we do it like that. You can see Bea, she was doing that with a nice mare. and she was a specialist of reversing the neck. So the outside rein is running over the pole, and it means that when the rider is approaching both hands from each other, there is a tension applied to the corner of the lips, both sides. And the more the horse is lifting his head, the more you maintain and sometimes increase a bit this tension. And you wait until the horse is reacting the other way, because it's a law of physics, well-known one, action, reaction. There is never action without reaction. Good. And if the rider is well doing that, very quickly, the horse tries to get rid of this tension, which is not painful, but a little discomfortable. The horse tries to get rid of it by putting the nose forward. And naturally, the rider has to follow that and loosen a bit the tension of the reins. And very quickly, the horse is understanding, okay, the more I lift the head, the more the reins are tight. But as soon as I go the other way, the tension is lighter. So they very quickly, you put the head as low as and long as you want, and long neck. And the thing is that the horse comes on the bit. The rider has to keep a nice contact when the horse is down and increasing the tension quietly, following the head up, because the horse makes you acting. This is what is interesting. He makes you acting. You go with him to say, hey, I'm still there, and what now? It's incredibly effective. They learn that in standing still and in walk very quickly, because the forward movement is helpful. When they understand a bit that from the ground, you can repeat it from the saddle. It's very quickly working, and it's incredibly effective. Yeah, but you were not putting your little hands down, so I know that it's terrible. But I don't mind the opinion of the judges. I mind the opinion of my horse. And I want quick, effective results being soft. The rest I'm not concerned with. Let's go. Next. Good. Now we have to come to the flexion of the pole, because our horse knows enough. He's giving the mouth. He's raising his neck. Is completely flexible right and left, up to 45, 90 degrees sometimes. Is extending the neck. Good. We can flex. So from a high position, the rider is asking for the mouth with the inner rein, and is asking for the bend with a little upward action on the inner rein, asking for the mouth and the bend. But what is new is that this time, instead of giving on the outer rein, the left one here, he will fix the hand and quietly resist a little bit. When the horse is used to give his mouth, is used to bend, you don't have to resist a lot on the outer rein. The horse, in order to follow your inside hand and bend, is flexing his pole. And it should be easy. Why? Because it's the first time you are a little bit acting on the tongue and the lower jaw one side. So if you have to do that strong, it's because your horse has not been prepared enough. So step back, don't force. Okay, let's go on. Good. So let's try to do that from the saddle now. First exercise, the jaw yielding. The rider takes the reins from a natural attitude, aligning the elbow, the hand, the mouth, and soft contact, and is acting upward, demi-arrêt, upward action in order to ask for a higher position. So it's a kind of upward vibration, and the rider is increasing the frequency and the intensity as much as necessary to obtain that the horse is taking the head higher, and then the rider can shorten the reins and drop the hands to the aligning the 3 points with the absolutely light reins. So the horse has been asked for a higher position. He was opening his mouth, and then descend de main, light reins, and listen. The horse is talking, he's answering the question, and the rider has to listen to the answer. So this is the first step. The horse is self-carriage, high position, natural position, steady position. Only the mouth is moving. It's interesting. We return to the experience we were doing at the beginning, trying to understand what the horse is doing when he's yielding. So we provoke that with demi-arrêt, high position, descend de main. It was step one. The horse knows that he was doing it in hand already. No problem. Very easy. Let's go. Lateral flexions. So I repeat that each time something is understood in halt, you do it in walk and even in trot, and then it depends the horses. There are many things to explain. We cannot say everything. Good. The bending. For bending, I don't have picture anymore. Hello, hello. Hello, hello, the technique.
Yes, Philippe, we're here. We are on the search for a natural mise en main. Do you see me though?
No, I just have the nice wehorse logo.
The nice wehorse logo. This is not what we want. So we will look into this now. So we are, I would say, three quarters through your presentation. Really much looking forward to your questions.
We approach the end.
We have so many questions that got already submitted. And if you do want
Let me see.
have your question raised in the Q&A session, please drop your question down below under Ask a Question. There we can then actually see that you can upload questions of fellow participants. There have been already many questions. So everyone please stay. We get Philippe right back in, and then we proceed with his last portion of the presentation. And then, of course, the Q&A, already brilliant questions. So we take now the time actually to look at them. So we have one question with 61 votes. That is really high in demand. Then we have Margaret, 45 votes. Lavina, 39. We have 37 from Kim. So everyone just stay calm and you can stay here. We get Philippe right back into this. And then, Philippe, you can proceed. So Nicole, Hildegard, Michelle, Monica, you can all stay here. Philippe, there you are back again. Wonderful. And now we bring the presentation back on, Philippe.
Yes, I just need 5 minutes to finish.
Wonderful.
Good. We will lateral flexion. So the rider is asking for the mouth and the bend by acting upward with the inner hand, and descend de main with a shorter rein. As soon as the horse was accepting the bend, it should keep the bend, light reins, giving his mouth. Good. Next. It's the same progression. And then from the bend, the rider let the rein slide through the fingers, and the horse can go to neck extension. So he does that in halt, in walk, in trot, and even in canter afterwards. Next. Here you can see action-reaction from the saddle when the horse is kneed. You take the contact, the horse tries to put his head as high as possible. Doesn't matter, guy, I go with you. So you lift your hands even more in order to maintain the tension of the rein and even increase it progressively, but just applied to the corner of the lips. And as soon as the horse tries to go the other way, you let your hands go down and forward and follow the mouth, keeping a soft contact. This is action-reaction from the saddle. So this is essential for horses who are seriously refusing the contact until they remain steadily on the bit. But I would add it's useful for all horses, because when for any reason they try to come above, they should know that you immediately lifting a little bit the hands, put them on the bit again. It's magic. Good. Next. Here is an example of a flexion of the pole with my horse, Mr. Nooney. So the horse is in a high position, self-carriage, giving his mouth. Lifting the left hand, the horse is bending to the left. The right hand keeps fixed and is a little resisting, and the horse is giving his pole. And descend de main, light reins, he keeps like that some seconds with a lively mouth. This was the correct flexion of the pole in the high position, ramené. Okay, good, that's it. Next. And this is the Ainun while showing 2 years ago in Germany during an open day of the school, where many people. So you can see him in neck extension. He's redone without nose bend, neck extension, and high and flexed for collection. And don't be surprised if you notice that the leather stirrups are short. The horse was also jumping. So I had to do everything with short leather stirrups, which is also interesting. Okay, next. The use of the hands reveals two different conceptions of dressage. Either it's a trial of strength between the rider's arms and the neck of the horse, with constraining instrument nearly automatically. Or it's a dialogue between the mouth of the horse and the rider's hand. You have to decide what you prefer. As Master Horse says, the hand of the rider is not something to neglect. It's the key to an intelligent and intelligible equitation based on communication. Next. Master Horse says, légèreté, I agree. By the light of objective data from physiology, biomechanics, ethology, locomotion, and others, I forgot, neurosciences, and whatever, the concept of légèreté doesn't appear anymore as a simple riding option among others. It's not a truth among many other truths. It's undoubtedly the one that meets the biological needs of the horse. Until we find better, I think it's what meets the biological needs of the horse. And this is the reason why it's extremely effective, and even on ordinary or limited horses. Next slide, and could be the last. The final conclusion. Let's return to the famous official formulation. Ride the horse from behind, over the back, and through the pole. Master Horse was explaining that he fully disagrees. And he would say, if he could talk on my place, I hope I'm talking right for him. The right thing should be converse with the mouse. So we start in the front, not in the rear. Converse with the mouse in order to control the neck for mastering the shoulders, because it's fundamental. Let the back undulate and swing with full amplitude. Don't bother it with things the horse cannot do. And the more these conditions are achieved, the more you can control the hindquarters and the more activity you may demand from the hind legs. So when we studied seriously and deeply the nature of the horse, on the light of many sciences, we realize that the truth is nearly completely the opposite of the official formulation. Next and last. Master horse seems to validate the best concept of some major French masters, such as there are elements of what we explained today in Baucher, even if people don't like. In Général Lot, there are some in La Guérinière and many others. That's what the Ecole of Légèreté aims to promote. I'm more interested in promoting that than a special beat, a new special noseband, or a new working rein. It seems to me much more effective and respective to the horses. That's all.
Wonderful, Philippe. It has been really a deep dive, and I think we all learned so much about the Ecole de Légèreté. For all of you here in our webinar, there is so much of Philippe's philosophy, so much of his work in wehorse.com. We have exclusively for all of you a coupon code, which is Karl21. So Karl with a K and 2121. That is a 33% discount on our yearly subscription. So we very much invite you to redeem this. We help you to further dive into Philippe's know-how and into his philosophy. We are going into our Q&A session, Philippe. Before we do so, we have a short trailer, and then we come with the first question.
Yes.
Proven know-how from true champions and idols in over 100 online courses, including exercises, ideas, solutions, or simply tips to keep your training exciting and successful. From dressage to care and help or show jumping, our 15 categories are here to guide you and help you get the support you've been looking for. With a step-by-step approach to each exercise, it is clear and easy for you to apply this in your personal training. In the blink of an eye, you can find your perfect course. Your favorite to watch later. And benefit from additional course materials. Sign up now and get started.
Wonderful.
With your first course on wehorse.com.
So we come to our questions. So many of you submitted questions here under Ask a Question. If you still have one, please do so. Submit it under Ask a Question. And Philippe, are you ready for the first question?
Yeah, I am.
So it is a very broad question to start with. It has the most upvotes from the community. And maybe you can very briefly answer it. It has been covered throughout your presentation. So how much forward down do you use in your training? And in particular, in which situations do you use it?
Yes. The correct neck extension, horizontal neck, nose forward. It doesn't need to be deeper because more to the shoulders and not longer neck. What for? It's one of the attitudes the horses have to learn very soon. But it doesn't mean to me that the horses have to spend months and months the nose down, doing kilometers of walk, trot, and canter completely on the shoulders, because we know that when the neck is down, the withers come down, and especially with the weight of the rider. So training the horse all the time completely on the shoulders is not a good idea. It's overcharging the forelegs, it's overcharging the muscles of the shoulder, and it's definitely not necessary. But I would say that generally people use the neck extension not enough and too much. Too much, as I said, nose down, kilometers and hours a day for months. You see that in dressage competition and not even correct neck extension, overflex down. 1 hour and a half before doing the show. I mean, this is strange. So this is too much. And not enough. I cannot understand that in the training or in the warming up before a show, that a horse is in a high position, in even a correct one, and flexed, clack, 5, 10, 15 minutes. No. This is not enough. I mean, and it's a fantastic test. I do it with my horse, and you can see it on the videos I was doing. The horse is high, collecting the trot. Let the rein slide, zoom. The nose is completely forward in 2 seconds, and you can extend the trot. You take the reins, he comes high again. You do piaffe, you let the reins go, he's extending the neck, and you go trot. So checking that the horse at any second, in any gait, and after any exercise can immediately take the reins, it's stretching completely, quickly, and meaning I'm always ready to do it. And it's a fantastic test of confidence to the hand, because I was doing something difficult. I open the fingers, let the reins go, and the horse is, I want to keep with you. I want to keep with you. And it's very different than the head down and the nose coming behind. This is something else. And so I repeat, people either use the down position too much or not enough. Too long, too much, with the negative effect, and not enough, because in fact it should be 20, 30, 40 times in the lesson extending the neck, and maybe only 10 seconds. It's not necessary to do kilometers on the shoulders. That is extending, is forward, okay, high and long and high and long. It's the change of position which is significant and interesting, and not keeping in the same one for minutes and hours. Okay?
Okay. A question asked by Luciana. I hope that answered your question. Next one, Philippe, has been asked by Margaret, and she is asking you, my horse throws her head up when transitioning into canter. How do I correct this?
I would make sure that she has the means to correct it before being in this situation. Is the horse ready to extend the neck in walk, in trot, each time she wants? I'm not sure with what I hear there. So first we have to make sure that is probably a horse with a tendency to be above the bit, as I mentioned. So he is a horse to learn that when he goes up, your hand goes even more, tighten the reins and say, hey, go that way, this one, the door is closed. So this would be necessary probably. And afterward, if the horse has this reaction that he knows that he can take the reins that way, in walk, in trot, in canter, then you can use it during the transitions. But if you don't have first a signal, a behavior of the rider, a use of the hand to teach the horse what he should do, it's not in canter you will solve the problem. It has to be explained, maybe from the ground, but in walk and in trot, if the horse, and I return to what I said 5 minutes ago, have a horse always ready to take the reins the first time you ask for it. And this is probably a horse who needs to be taught action-reaction. And if the rider is well doing that, she will make him steady on the bit, in canter the same.
All right, we move on to the next question.
After that, it's necessary to see the horses. Explain the theory, it's one thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Eventually, as you said, it depends. We don't have the context here, the complete context, but I think those have been very valuable tips. So next question is from Lavina, and her question is, how best to mobilize and warm up the back of an elderly, so of an older horse, with groundwork? She is asking for lunging, long reining, walk in hand. Is it bad if the horse moves a bit on the forehand? If so, how can I resolve this? How can I solve this?
Yeah, first of all, warming up the horse bareback is something we should try to do systematically before riding, because it's always better not to sit on cold muscles. So if I know it's more time, it's a bit more complicated, but lunging in walk, trot, canter don't need a long time in order to ride a horse with warm muscles already. Good. This is necessary. And it's not necessary that the horse is head down 20 minutes at the lunge. And then it's another subject we should talk about. You can have a horse in a natural attitude at the lunge, and you can train the horse to bend his neck at the lunge. And if you are well controlling the shoulders, the balance of the shoulders with your whip, the horse will extend the neck without any special rein, just due to the control of the bend and the shoulders. And I would say if a horse is warmed up at the lunge 15 minutes, 20 minutes with the head down due to any system, first of all, he's forced to be the head down. And I don't like this idea, as you know. There can be accidents also with that. And the horse is stretching his back. Okay, it's good for the back, but he's overcharging extremely the muscles of the shoulders. He's dropping his withers and his rib cage, and he's extremely on the front. So is it the best? I would prefer a natural attitude, trying to provoke the neck extension without any trick, and making many transitions, many changes of direction at the lunge and things like that. Because anyway, there are always two sides on a medal. Head down, good to stretch the back, but there is a price. It's overcharging the shoulders and the front legs. So too much is too much. I think we should do something more natural, more reasonable. But lunging before riding, yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Next question by Teresa. And she is asking, and you slightly already touched on this, which exercises would you recommend to teach a horse to lift its withers? Any tips for horses who already have problems with it?
Raising the neck. Raising the neck. Teach the horse to carry his head higher and lift his neck. And we saw there is no reason to be frightened with that, because we know now that when the rider is asking the horse for a higher position, not fighting with him and as a defense, but asking for the high position, that 100% of the horses lifting the head, even in halt, and even with a rider on the back, are lifting the rib cage significantly. So this is something to teach. And it's difficult for people to admit that, because they have been so conditioned with ride with low hands, and no, I can't lift the head with your hand, it's terrible, it's awful, never do that. So they don't dare to do it, but it's the thing to do. And aside that, it has to be done properly. I mean, it's something to learn. It's not that easy. But if a horse has this problem, he has to develop his capacity to lift his rib cage. And if he's never asked for a high position of the head and relaxing in this position, he will never do it.
Okay. Hope this answers your question, Teresa. Next question by Kim.
Rein back can help. Rein back can help,
Yeah,
but with a high
exactly.
neck and so on. Good.
Shall we proceed to the next question, Philippe?
Yes, let's go.
So the next question is by Kim, and hers is, what can I do if my horse is not searching for a connection with the bit and the hand? He wasn't ridden with respect in the past.
Flexions, action, reaction, as we explained. So the first thing is to establish a nice relationship with the mouth, that the horse doesn't fear the hand and the bit anymore. So it means only acting on the corner of the lips, teaching the horse that opening the paw and lifting his head is permitted. It's not a shame. Opening the mouth and tasting the bit and playing with it is nice. That no action on the tongue anymore. And certainly this horse should learn from an open paw to bend his neck, not pulling, just acting upward. And after that, action, reaction, to make him, let's say, pulling a bit, taking the reins forward and down. This is what can re-establish confidence to the hands.
Okay.
And very progressively. Naturally, it should not be in canter to start, but in walk, in trot, and so on.
Okay. Next question by Ina. She is having a 2-year-old PRE, so a Pura Raza Española mare.
Mm-hmm.
When do I start working youngsters in hand? What is the most important thing to focus on with a youngster?
If the horse is 2 years old, he can start very, very, very slightly a bit disciplined at the launch, but it's very young, and but in hand there are nice things she could start, the very basic and simple things. If the horse will not be overcharged, because learning in standing still and in walk to lift his head, to give his mouth, to bend his neck, to extend his neck, I mean, it will be a game. It will be a game. And when she will start riding him after the being ridden at the launch, she will have excellent communication immediately thanks to that. So this she can do.
Okay.
Teaching the aids.
Easy in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. Susanna is asking, what to do if the horse resists contact by opening his mouth and playing with the tongue, assuming that the teeth, the bit fit, the back and the saddle are checked and okay, and the pressure used is only light. What can she do with the horse resisting contact by opening the mouth and playing with the tongue? I think a common problem to many people also.
Yes, there are horses who are reacting with the mouth. So yawning, keeping an open mouth, yawning, moving the tongue sideways, backward, over the bit, and things like that. So they need to start with an extremely soft bit. Horses like that, I'm sometimes using a leather bit, not a bit covered with leather, just leather. It's leather on leather. It's totally flexible, especially when it's wet in the mouth. It takes the shape of the mouth, and some horses keep a more quiet mouth with that. And the rider needs to have an excellent hand, and to have established a very soft contact, to be always following the mouth, immediately yielding when the horse starts opening the mouth. But there are also other techniques. It's when you train the flexion, for instance, in hand. You take the contact, good. You are very softly acting on the corner of the lips, and the horse starts doing too many things, you know. So you don't move. You wait. You wait until he's less doing or doing nothing. 2 seconds. Boom. Release completely. The horse has to be praised to do nothing. And it's the rider needs some patience to do that. But it's a way also. The horse has to be reconditioned to the hand. So I don't know what such a horse was doing in the past. This is something else. But there are special precautions with horses like that. And it's horses to ride with high hands, especially high hands, a long time. Because for a long time, they will need to have absolutely no action on the tongue, nothing. It's delicate situation, I admit.
Okay. As you said, delicate situation and has to be reviewed individually, I think. We move on to the next one. So the next one is by Kelly. Her question is, I'm curious about the rein back in hand with the head raised. The horse I tried is on a little croups high and ended up hollowing her back when the head was raised, rather than the desired lowering of the quarters. Is this normal to begin with? If not so, how do I prevent this from happening? So she tried with a little croups high, and then ended up hollowing her back, and the head was raised. So how can she prevent this?
Yeah, there are horses who have the tendency to reverse their back when they start the rein back. It's often horses with a long back or a bit hollow, or with a special conformation like that. And this one, they should learn the rein back in neck extension, or almost in neck extension, I mean with a long neck, in order that they first learn to step back without shifting the weight to the quarters, keeping the natural balance a bit to the shoulders. So a good system consists in teaching them action-reaction and doing rein back with action-reaction. So walking backward, sometimes touch using the whip on the chest, but asking for the horse on the beat. As soon as they go back with a round neck, a little long, and they keep stretching their back, they go backward quite an easy way. And afterward, progressively, because the back became just normal, they will do it a bit higher position and the correct way. This happens frequently with horses a bit downhill, or long back, or weak in the back. So this one, they have to learn the rein back first, with the neck long enough that they keep on the beat and they don't try to reverse the back.
Okay, great. We move on, Philippe, to the next question. It has been asked by Lucy, 24 votes from the community. So we already asked, I think, 7 questions, and now we are kind of in the mid-range of votes. So, must we ask for mobilization of the jaw continuously, or if the horse is advanced and light to the aids, can we use it just to check relaxation punctually when feeling it is needed?
If a horse is constantly and quietly, smoothly mobilizing his mouth, I don't complain. You know, it's better to be rich, but it's not necessary. And somebody like, I think it's Colonel Margot, who has been an excellent écuyer chef in Saumur in the past, was saying the horse should answer when the rider is putting a question. The same than a well-educated child is answering the question when there is a question. The rest of the time, he shut up. So what is absolutely necessary is that when the rider starts using the hand, the horse starts by giving his mouth. And some horses prolong several seconds and have the tendency to go on, as long as they are relaxed, because if they are not, they stop. Some others give the mouth and stop, and they wait for the next question to answer again. I would say the important thing is that the horse gives the mouth each time you use the hand. The rest of the time, it's not necessary. The horse is in one position, is light contact. There is no need to have a constant mobility of the mouth. If the horse does, in itself, it's not bad. It's not bad. But the minimum is that the horse is doing when he's asked for.
Wonderful. All right, Lucy, hope this answers your question. We move on to the next one, Philippe. And it recently, as we spoke, got a lot of upvotes. And Nina asked this. And I may, Nina, rephrase this question a little. So in the School of Légèreté, how do you see bitless riding? Nina is asking if you see a possibility to establish bitless riding, and I would like to extend this question. What's your view on bitless questions? On bitless riding, sorry.
Yeah, this is an automatic question. Yeah. The bitless riding came, and I understand, to people who could not admit the way they could see so many people riding with a bit. I mean, with strong hands and severe beats and tight nose bend and contracted horses and overflexion and so on. I perfectly understand that they say, this, sorry, I don't want. So, but what is to be rejected? It's the way the bit is used. It's not the bit in itself. The alternative to terrible hands is not no bit, it's other hands. And you have to go to a shop to buy other hands. So if you learn another way to use your hands, which is, as we try to explain today, soft, clear, effective, you don't need tight nose bend. You don't need to overflex your horses. You don't need the curb. You don't need you don't need power. And you can come to an extremely refined and soft communication with your horse, with question, answer. Good. And I noticed that with a bit less people, because several times I had some coming in a clinic or in a teacher course as a guest for a pedagogy. Some people, it's almost an ideology, bit less, bit no question. I don't want. So they are coming for a lesson, and I don't want any bit less. My horse never had. I don't want. Okay, and some student of mine will remember that because they saw it. And I could notice that the horses were confident with the rider, but the horses were most of the time too low, and they were often overflexing, because you can overflex bit less. And the position of the neck and the bend were not that clear, so all the sideway movements were not that obvious. And. So it was not a dream. The rider was maybe dreaming something, but the result was not that high level and with some problems. Good. And each time I did that, I said, okay, I respect your way, but you come for a lesson. And so will you accept the challenge? We use a bit, a snaffle bit, a very soft one, no noseband. We show you what we are doing. And if your horse is defending and protesting once, we stop. Good. It never happened. We were doing some flexions from the ground, explaining the horse what is this bit, what we intend to do. And we were riding the horse, and it was nicely working. And afterwards, the student was doing the same. And they were each time looking very satisfied. So I said, look, the problem is not bit or no bit. The problem is, how are you using your hands? With what philosophy? And are you able to manage your hands in order to respect the sensibility of the mouth and even use it? Good. And last and not least, about the bitless, it became quite a fashion. And why not? Overflexion is also a fashion, so why not bitless? And there is also a business behind that. So there is a special noseband invented by this one or that one. Good. And there are people showing bitless and sometimes showing nice things. I saw some respectable shows. And some are quite famous. But
I knew this question would energize you, Philippe.
Yeah, yes, because it's something I perfectly know. And
yeah.
I was curious enough, or lucky enough sometimes, to arrive in the working training area in the afternoon before the show of the evening. And each time I saw these horses with a snaffle or with a curb and trained 1 hour completely overflexed and showing in the evening bitless. So what is honest in that? Please. So train do bitless if you want, show bitless, but train bitless from the beginning to the end. And don't do the worst of the dressage backstage, because this is not okay.
Okay. I would say we come to the next question. So, 20 votes. Sitje, a very nice name, by the way, ask this question. I understand the concept of relaxation of the paw and the higher head position, but to me, the quote-unquote engine is still behind. I assume we need enough engine to get a good relaxed connection. Could you please elaborate a bit more on the quote unquote engine part?
Yeah, this picture engine works for mechanics, but not for horses. The horses, they have 4 legs. They don't have 2 engines behind and nothing in the front. They have 4 legs. And seriously studying neurosciences, locomotion, and kinetics, the front decide in terms of balance and in terms of locomotion. It's a fact, it's scientifically demonstrated, no question. So a horse has 4 engines, if you want, and the most important one is in the front. It doesn't mean that the hind legs are not useful. I'm not explaining the hind legs are nothing, you can cut them and throw them away. This is not what I say. They are important, but they are not the most important and the only thing. Being obsessed by the hind legs, pushing, power thrust, engaging the hind legs through the back and tralala. We were explaining, the horse is showing that it doesn't work like that. And so naturally, the horse, well-trained horse is using the power thrust of the hind legs. But if the front is not doing the right thing, it doesn't help. It even cannot express. And so the horse is an entity. It's not 2 engines and a back and the pole, as we said. In terms of balance, in terms of locomotion, the front decides, the back reacts. It's demonstrated. It's the front which makes the changes of balance. It's not the hind legs engaging. This idea to control the back all the time, freezing it in the flexing position or in the bending position, it's an illusion. It's an illusion. And fortunately, the horses don't do it because they would block their spine all the time. So again, it's a reality. We have to care about the front because here is the brain, the mouth. We are connected with the hand to the mouth, not to the tail. Good. So here is the brain. The mouth, at the end of a balancing pole, we have to use it. And using it properly, we can control the shoulders because they decide everything. And with that, we let the back do its job. And by the way, if we want to let the back do its job, use rising trot much more frequently instead of sitting all the time to look dressage. There are situations in which it's useful to sit. Each time you are very collecting for passage, for instance, or for piaffe, sit, okay. But to be sitting in trot and working in trot and extended trot, even on a young horse, sorry, but it's stupid. It's dumb. We should release the back. We should let it do its job. The rising trot has been a revolution in the cavalry because people and horses could do twice as kilometers in the day, not being half dead. And in dressage, we sit all the time and talking about the back properly working. This is strange. So let the back do its job. Use the neck. Understand the importance of the shoulders. And don't forget that the hind legs are very important. But they are important. The horse has to be light to your legs also. So this is another important thing we could not talk about tonight. But if we want that the horse is reacting like fire to a simple touch of the leg, it means we cannot use them so frequently with opposition of the hands because we are dreaming about shortening from behind or bending the back one side. We have to let the horse quiet with that. I'm always surprised when riding unknown horses and sometimes advanced and from Advanced people, I'm surprised to have them heavy in the hands sometimes, but incredibly heavy in the legs. I mean, I have to push like a crazy to just get something. They should be light to the legs also. And so it means we should not oppose the hand to the legs. The legs, no hands, the hands, no legs. This is a very important message. And again, a horse is not a car. He has 4 legs. And let's talk about mechanics a little bit. Do you know what are the best cars? The one with a front wheel driving or the one with a hind wheel driving? Yes, the front wheel.
The front wheel, yeah.
Yeah. It's well known. If we talk about mechanics, let's go.
Especially in winter.
Yeah.
When snows on the street.
So the front decides also in mechanics.
Yeah.
So four wheels drive, it's also good. But only the back, piece of soap. Funny.
Okay, yeah, wonderful analogy, and I think message understood. We move on. One question from Louis. Commandant Licard in Équitation raisonnée says that statistics made from static observations don't stay true in motion. Neck extension in halt overcharges the forehand. In motion, it doesn't, according to his explanation. In fact, but when I see high noon, I would give him a point. Can you please argue and explain this?
There is no reason that the neck extension doesn't shift the weight to the front because the horse moves. I mean, it's an assertion which is a little bit strange. And when a horse wants to be fast, what is he doing? He's extending his neck. And he's extending his neck because it gives him the balance to go. The thoroughbred on racetrack, if we would force them to keep a high head, they would not be that fast. So I disagree with this idea that in forward movement, and I know what happened with that. I remember when before teaching, I have been a student, and I heard a lot of things. For instance, and I'm not the only one, neck extension, even a correct one, neck extension is lifting the withers. Yes, many people assert that. When the horse is extending the neck, is lifting his withers. Yeah, the rider sees the withers much higher than the pole. This is clear, but it doesn't mean the withers were lifting while the horse is extending the neck. On the contrary, it's the contrary of the reality. I also heard 20,000 times as anybody, don't lift the head of your horse because the withers will come down. The horse will hollow, the withers will drop between the shoulders. We saw that the reality is right the opposite. So a feeling or a conviction is not an explanation and even less a demonstration. There are sciences which are clearly giving explanations. So I heard and I was learning the opposite of the reality. And the other thing was, and especially in the 70s, when many people were teaching that, head down, but really the nose nearly on the ground. And the horses in walk, in trot, in canter like that. Good. Until some had severe problems. Good. And then was the idea that when the horse is head down, it's putting more weight on the front, but as soon as it's in forward movement, due to the engagement of the hind legs, it's compensating and the horse is again in balance. More complicated, it's difficult to find. Huh? And we know already that in collecting, the horses don't shorten from behind. They sure don't do it with the nose down. No, this is comfortable explanations when people are convinced. When you are convinced, you try to find an explanation which is confirming what you are already thinking. But it doesn't mean you're right. Huh? And you know, when a horse is escaping full speed and full arms, I suggest if you succeed in lifting his head, you have more chance to stop than if you let him the head down. So, no, I think the forward movement, I appreciate Commandant Licard. There are many interesting things in his book, especially in terms of locomotion, but on this I disagree with him.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Philippe. There have been so many questions. I think we could spend until midnight probably here, Central European time, where the time zone where we both are, to answer all those questions. It has been remarkable how many of you actually spent this evening or wherever you are, maybe the afternoon or early in the morning even with us. So I would like to remind everyone about the coupon code 33%, a third off our yearly subscription with Karl 21. And yeah, Philippe, I would like to say thank you so much for being part of this wonderful evening.
Thank you to wehorse for organizing that. It was interesting.
This, ladies and gentlemen, has been Une Soirée avec Philippe Karl. I would like to say a big thank you to our team. You guys, as always, made a brilliant job. And here from Hamburg in Germany, good evening, good day, wherever you are all around the world. And thank you for tuning in. And thank you, Philippe. Bonne soirée.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you very much.